Hi there, welcome to Switch Mania. I am Clarence and today we'll talk about the best Nintendo Switch games on sale. We will be covering the UK, EU, US, Australia, and Canada eShop. But first and foremost, thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If you want to see more of this series, please leave a like. Remember to subscribe to the channel and ring the bell to receive future notifications. Likes and subscriptions help keep the channel alive. Just a quick reminder, 90% of you guys are not yet subscribed to the channel. If you are enjoying the videos and not subscribed yet, why not? You're coming back anyways. With all that said, let's get back to the video. First on our list is R-Type Dimensions EX. R-Type Dimensions EX is a collection of classic games that fits the Nintendo Switch like a snug pair of old slippers. Even if the minor improvements to quality of life are easily overlooked, the additional features and visual tricks make mastering such a difficult piece of history more enjoyable than if it were simply a cut-and-paste port of the originals. It's the best of the old-school arcade shoot-'em-up games already available on the Nintendo eShop, and it's a great addition to a growing portable arcade collection. R-Type Dimensions EX improves on an already enjoyable remaster. The original titles are classics, and despite their well-known difficulty, the changes and additions make the game easier for new players to learn how to play correctly. Despite the fact that the Switch already has a plethora of excellent shooters, EX is an excellent addition to this expanding genre. Next is Jack Move. I believe Jack Move will be one of my favorite games, and I wish more bite-sized RPGs were available. The pixel art in the game is enjoyable to look at, and the great music that goes with it enhances the experience. Bright Town comes to life, and the NPCs have their own stories that unfold as the main story progresses. This makes me want to talk to every NPC I come across to learn more about people like the woman who was dating a mafia runner or the two hacker sisters who are clearly on a different level. Jack Move is a great place to have fun if you like the look of cyberpunk and want a short RPG to play over the weekend. Next is Everhood. Everhood's story is similar to many others. It began as a passion project and was completed after years of hard work. It was obviously inspired by Undertale, but that didn't stop it from being enjoyable on its own. What a moving experience on every level, visually, audibly, and philosophically. Even if Everhood's message isn't universal, the game's sound, graphics, and gameplay are among the best on Switch. The rhythm combat is flawless, and the ability to change the difficulty at any time makes it even better. This isn't a rhythm game in the traditional sense. Even if the description is incorrect, it is still a fantastic game. Everhood is a strange and cool adventure game that you should not miss if you enjoyed Undertale or similar games. Next up, Black Book. Black Book feels like a Dungeons & Dragons campaign through rural Russia in some ways. Along the way, you learn about history and folklore, which I enjoy, and battles are fought with cards rather than dice, which I also enjoy. The pacing is off, the addition of Duroc is unnecessary, and there are some quality of life issues that could be improved, but I would still strongly recommend this game to anyone who is interested. If you can immerse yourself in the story right away, Black Book will be your go-to game for a long time. Black Book, a really well-crafted RPG adventure, is designed so that you can play it for hours at a time or pick it up and play it mission by mission without getting lost. Next up, Iconoclasts. Iconoclasts is a fantastic game that demonstrates how much care and time went into its creation. It's available on almost every platform, and even if you're sick of the tried-and-true formula that so many other games in this genre follow, this one stands out. It stands out and deserves a lot more attention than it is currently receiving. If Metroidvanias have ever turned you off because they were too difficult or confusing, or if you wished they focused more on the story, Iconoclasts is the game for you. Joachim Sandberg has created a 2D adventure that is one of the most entertaining of the year, if not the genre. He accomplished this by focusing on the story and characters rather than the heavy exploration that is common in the genre. Next is Super One More Jump. Super One More Jump is a straightforward game with only one button that works admirably. What could have been a generic mobile port is instead a well-made auto-run platformer with interesting presentation options. Some may dislike the game's fast pace, but hardcore gamers looking for a 2D roller coaster ride that will get their adrenaline pumping should look for this hidden gem. This is an enjoyable activity that will have you wanting to jump again and again. Super One More Jump is a fun and addictive game that starts out easy and gradually becomes more difficult. There are over 100 levels to complete as well as a few extra game modes to unlock. There are also 2 multiplayer modes, one of which allows 2 to 4 players to collaborate. Next up, Astray. Astray has a clear, creative premise, and it keeps you interested the entire time by introducing new ideas every time you think you've got it figured out. This is one of the better platform games to hit the eShop in a long time, and there are plenty of them. Overall, Astray is a success, despite having too much blood and a slow pace. The game is enjoyable and unique to play, the world is interesting and well designed, the bosses are memorable, and the challenge is difficult to put down. Some games are overlooked by gamers for no apparent reason, so don't let Astray be one of them. Next is Azure Striker Gunvolt 3. Azure Striker Gunvolt 3 successfully concludes the trilogy by raising the stakes in all the right places. It introduces new game mechanics to keep things interesting while reimagining and expanding on what first drew fans to the series. This appears to be the culmination of Inti Creates' many years of hard work. It's a true work of art that combines a vintage aesthetic with modern technology. If this is the final Gunvolt game, we can rest assured that the Azure Striker went out with a big blue bang. The Azure Striker Gunvolt 3 does not dwell on the past because it wishes to move forward. This was a risk that paid off. Kirin is the best protagonist the series has ever had. His playstyle encourages you to constantly attack and set up defenses. Despite the fact that the story could have been better, Gunvolt 3 is an improvement on an already excellent series. Next is Bloodstained, Curse of the Moon. Curse of the Moon is a fun throwback to the old Castlevania games, and it's well worth the admission price if you missed those games. If you couldn't stand the first 3 Castlevania games, Curse might not be for you, but I'm willing to bet there are some systems in place that you'll enjoy. Beautiful pixel art, good music, well-planned levels, and multiple endings that make you want to play it again and again. What is already a fantastic Castlevania game could have been improved with a few more levels and possibly more modern controls. Bloodstained, Curse of the Moon is much more than a retro-themed minigame. It draws inspiration from the classic Castlevania NES games and adds many quality-of-life improvements, as well as a few surprises, to the nostalgic 8-bit gameplay. Next is Bloodstained, Curse of the Moon 2. Bloodstained, Curse of the Moon 2 has many of the same positive aspects as the first game, with just enough new content to justify its existence. All of the good things about its predecessor remain, and it's even more strange and original. The classic Castlevania 3-inspired recipe still works, and genre fans will appreciate the retro-stiff but tight and satisfying controls. Bloodstained, Curse of the Moon 2 is an excellent sequel to the first game in the series. It retains everything that made the first game such a surprise success, but it expands and adds to it with care that shines through the entire thing. Next up, Azure Striker Gunvolt, Striker Pack. The Azure Striker Gunvolt, Striker Pack contains the pinnacle of what Inti Creates has created thus far. By far the more interesting of the two is the sequel. It has a lot more content and is much more visually appealing. The action is extremely addictive, and the game is tight and simple to learn. It's difficult to stop playing the game because it's so entertaining. They're both excellent examples of the run-and-gun genre, so it's difficult to find major flaws in either. The fact that they are available for the Nintendo Switch simply means that you do not have to play them at home. Azure Striker Gunvolt, Striker Pack combines two of the best 2D action games ever created. If you enjoy this type of story and haven't yet played any of GB's adventures, this collection is a must-have. Next is Blaster Master 02. Blaster Master 02 was simply a lot of fun to play. It was almost exactly what I expected from a new game in a beloved series. As new skills are discovered and used, the game moves quickly and smoothly. Finding and playing with the weapons is a lot of fun, and the things that make Blaster Master gameplay so great have never been so bright and wonderful. Blaster Master 02 is a fantastic old-school game that you won't want to miss if you enjoy the genre. If you want a great action game, it's a blast to play whether you like retro games or not. But, with so many retro-styled games on the eShop these days, this one and the first Blaster Master stand out as must-haves. Next up, Gunvolt Chronicles, Luminous Avenger IX. The Luminous Avenger IX in Gunvolt Chronicles was fantastic. Despite its short length, the game is the best in the series due to changes in gameplay. It's clear that the developers prioritized speed and getting to the fun stuff as soon as possible. As a result, the game flows well and makes you want to go back and improve in some stages. The way the levels are designed and the game is played results in an intense 8.5 hours. Gunvolt Chronicles, Luminous Avenger IX is an excellent 2D action game. It's a great example of how 2D action should be done, from the way it looks to how fast it moves. Next is Blaster Master 03. Blaster Master 03 is a satisfying and memorable conclusion to a trilogy of 3 excellent games. If you're tired of the recent wave of AAA games that hold your hand, you'll appreciate its old-school level of difficulty set in an incredibly complex world. Both the action and the gameplay are excellent. The music is fantastic, and the story of Jason, Eve, and the rest of the cast has a happy ending. Yes, even though I had to wait 7 hours, I was still glad I played and won this game. Even though this is the end of the Blaster Master Zero trilogy, I hope Inti Creates and Sunsoft continue to make Blaster Master games. This series has a lot of potential left in it. So, what do I recommend you do? Simply buy it. Next up, Children of Morta. Because there is a progression system and unlockables, even a failed 20-minute run will give you something that will help you on your next run. Even if you don't like roguelites as much as I do, you'll enjoy the game's variety and action. Even better, it's impossible not to be drawn in by the Bergson family's struggle to stay alive and together in the face of a powerful evil. A two-player co-op mode is the cherry on top of this beautifully crafted game. Children of Morta is a must-play regardless of how you play it. Children of Morta is an excellent example of how to create an enjoyable roguelike. The difficulty curve is smoothed out by frequent upgrades, the story is engaging, and the combat is deep. It's difficult and sometimes boring, but it looks and feels right. Next is Moonlighter. Moonlighter is a fantastic and one-of-a-kind adventure game that can be played for 5 minutes or 5 hours. The gameplay works very well on the Nintendo Switch, making it an excellent game to pick up and play. You'll have a great time with Moonlighter whether you just want to run your own shop in peace or go on a big adventure by beating each dungeon. You should definitely invest your gold in this title. Overall, Moonlighter is a fantastic game that is more than the sum of its parts. It appeals to roguelike fans, action RPG fans, and even lifestyle sim fans. It's a fun-to-play grinding RPG game that comes highly recommended for any platform. Next is This War of Mine, Complete Edition. This War of Mine is likely one of the first modern games to successfully combine gameplay with a strong message while avoiding ludonarrative dissonance. This roguelike game is a masterpiece and one of the best indie games for the Nintendo Switch. This War of Mine Complete Edition for Nintendo Switch is the only game that depicts the brutality of war like no other. It doesn't appear to be very intense or impressive, but it has the ability to move us like few others, putting us in the shoes of survivors struggling to survive in the midst of a warlike conflict. The only drawback to the game is that the dialogue isn't always natural, and some people may find certain parts of the classic and stories modes more difficult than others. Despite being a very sad and scary look at war, This War of Mine, Complete Edition is fantastic in every other way. It's an excellent addition to the library of the Nintendo Switch. Next up, Aviary Attorney, Definitive Edition. Aviary Attorney has well-written characters, a great sense of humor, short but simple cases, a simple gameplay loop, and a lovely art style. Aviary Attorney differs from other games in the genre in that it allows players to fail and suffer the consequences of their poor investigation. However, it can be a little too simple and straightforward, which may disappoint some people. This game is a fantastic homage to the Ace Attorney series. The art is stunning, and the story and characters are hilarious, making you want to see more. Aviary Attorney is an absolute must-have for fans of story-driven adventures, police procedurals, and courtroom drama. It's a must-have for Switch owners due to its fantastic soundtrack, beautiful art, and amusing dialogue. Next is Darkest Dungeon. This is a gem of an RPG that stands out from the rest of the system. It has a dark atmosphere, grim settings, and truly terrifying enemies in dungeons. Using the touchscreen on the Nintendo Switch is fantastic and enhances the overall experience. Once you've figured out what you need to know, it's one of the best indie games for the Switch and will keep you entertained for weeks and months. Even though the font size is a little too small for mobile devices, the core of the game remains the same. This means that anyone with a Switch can now enjoy this visually stunning and challenging tactics role-playing game. Next up, Danmaku Unlimited 3. Danmaku Unlimited 3 is yet another excellent shooter for a system that is becoming increasingly suited to it. The fast-paced action of a bullet hell shooter is enhanced by interesting attack patterns and a set of game mechanics that reward quick kills and add style to the game. There's a good mix for both genre veterans and newcomers. Newcomers perform especially well because the game's difficulty and lack of continues motivate them to improve while avoiding death. DU3 is a high point for the genre, thanks to its excellent presentation. Despite the fact that the Switch has a plethora of shooters, fans should not overlook this one. Next is Toodee and Topdee. Toodee and Topdee delivers on what its brilliant concept promised. It can be difficult to grasp at first, but once you get used to the 2D/top-down hybrid design, the puzzles are enjoyable, and you can use the help options if you get stuck. This puzzle platformer for the Nintendo Switch is unique and stands out from the crowd. Toodee and Topdee is a challenging and entertaining game. It has a distinct premise that distinguishes it from other games in the genre. Toodee and Topdee are a couple I'd like to see again. They're charming, and there's plenty of room to improve on their few flaws. Toodee and Topdee is a fun, challenging, and original game. With the press of a button, you can switch from a 2D to a top-down view, solve puzzles, and defeat cool bosses. If you enjoy puzzle games, you should try this one out. Next is West of Loathing. West of Loathing is fantastic in every way. The writing is consistently and genuinely funny, the world is incredibly detailed and large, and all of the game systems work flawlessly together to ensure that the player can explore the world and learn as much as possible without becoming stuck. West of Loathing is one of the most amusing point-and-click adventures I've played in a long time. Combat is rarely an impediment to the adventure, and everything moves quickly enough to return you to doing silly things that will keep you smiling for the majority of the game. West of Loathing is a fun game to play if you want to have fun without relying on pop culture references or jokes that make fun of other people. Next up, Cook, Serve, Delicious 2. Cook, Serve, Delicious 2 on Switch is an excellent port. The touchscreen controls are excellent, as is the HD Rumble feature. This Switch version of the game is exactly what I was looking for. I can only hope for a physical release at some point. This is the only version of the game in which you can both play and cook. Cook, Serve, Delicious 2 is the most comprehensive food tycoon management game available. I'd advise anyone looking for a game like this to avoid the cheap food tycoon games that have recently appeared on the eShop and instead save up a few dollars to buy this one instead. Next up, Cotton Reboot. This game was fantastic. It's not only a fantastic remake of a classic shooter, but it's also one of the best shooters I've played on a modern system. VIII has done an excellent job of making the series feel both new and familiar. Still, it's a very short game, but if you enjoy good shooters and want to try for a high score, this is a must-have. Cotton Reboot should not be overlooked if you haven't heard of Cotton, Fantastic Night Dreams. You don't have to be a fan of retro games to enjoy this shoot 'em up's great arcade and action gameplay. You simply must enjoy cute, upbeat entertainment. Next is Yars, Recharged. I played it for the rest of the night after turning it on for the first time. I'll admit that I enjoy the first game as well. However, I believe that this game does an excellent job of updating that classic's basic loop while also introducing enough new ideas and modern touches to make it feel like a sequel. I like how it's a strange mix of fast-paced shooting and careful puzzle solving, and I'd recommend it to both Atari fans and newcomers. Yars, Recharged, an arcade action game from Atari, is an easy choice for your Nintendo Switch library at the current price. This game is entertaining and challenging enough to keep you entertained for hours. Next is Battle Chasers, Nightwar. Despite the short tutorial, Battle Chasers is a great game for RPG fans and newcomers alike because it has everything a great RPG should have: an interesting story, dungeons full of loot, a large bestiary, and a status/upgrade system that is unlike any other game. Despite the fact that long loading times disrupt the game's flow, the player is rewarded with beautiful artwork and helpful tips on the loading screen. Battle Chasers, Nightwar is a true independent gem. It's a love letter to the JRPGs that many of us grew up with, complete with beautiful graphics, great music, strange characters, and a plethora of mysteries to solve. Despite the fact that the Switch version has slower load times, this is a must-play for anyone who enjoys dungeons and the heroes who explore them. Next is YS8, Lacrimosa of Dana. For those who want to finish everything, YS8, Lacrimosa of Dana has some small, frustrating parts, but that's just how it is. It's a fully realized work of art, both visually and audibly, and should be in the collection of any serious Switch player. To top it all off, everything is tightly packed into a single package that, when purchased, requires no additional downloads and includes some cool extras. The story is a true work of art that keeps things interesting and fresh even after hours. The author isn't afraid to experiment or try new things in ways that feel natural. The Switch has gotten another great game with the port of YS8, Lacrimosa of Dana, and I can't recommend it enough. And last, but not the least, The Legend of Heroes, Trails from Zero. Trails from Zero is an excellent addition to an almost experimental video game genre, a true epic spanning decades of game development, a half-dozen consoles, and a dozen games. The richness and complexity of the story keep the mind occupied, and the charming writing and well-drawn characters make it enjoyable to read. Because the story is the most important aspect of this series, it's fortunate that it's good. Fortunately, the fighting is entertaining on its own, and the whole thing looks fantastic. This is a good place to start if you've never played The Legend of Heroes before. If you've been following this series for a while, you'll be relieved to know that one of the best games has finally received the full localization it deserves. That's all, guys. I hope this video was helpful in deciding which game to play, and thank you for checking out the list. Please remember to subscribe and we'll see you at the next one.